Hey guys, SoCal Val here. You are listening to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast.
Welcome, everybody, back to the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. Yes, this is another episode, and I'm your host, as always, Andy Burrows, and as always, joined by my illustrious tag team partner and good friend, Mr. Adam Cousins. Adam, good evening. How are you, sir?
Good evening, mate. I am good after another busy weekend of attending shows.
Yes, mate. We are getting out and about to attend it. I was at Apex. You were at Progress. We've said for many a months now, as much as we love talking WWE, AEW, now TNA, Impact Wrestling, we are all about helping and promoting the great talent and companies that are around our great country of the United Kingdom. We are no different today, my friend. As you can tell from my background, just especially for this man, we have Luke Twigg. He is the founder of APW Pro Wrestling. Luke, welcome, my friend. How are you, brother?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me on. Been looking forward to this actually over the weekend. It's been a while since I've done my podcast, so yeah, I'm really looking to dive into it.
It's great to have you on, mate. Like you said, me and Adam have spoke to some great UK promotions. We've obviously recently been chatting to you. We're looking forward to attending some shows. Luke, just give us a brief history about yourself, about APW. We're always intrigued about how people even start a wrestling promotion. We talk to the guys at Ignite and at Apex and Rev Pro, and when they tell us how it all started, we're just amazed, because people at the minute, it's good. You just turn on the TV and there's WWE and AEW. But I personally think it is when you have to start a local promotion and book your own talent, pay your own talent, buy your own ring, etc., etc. It's got to be one of the hardest things in the world. How did your journey start, Luke?
So my journey into professional wrestling actually began with Shropshire Wrestling Alliance. So that was already started. That had already been going since 2012. Believe it or not, I wasn't actually a fan of wrestling when I was a kid. So I'm not going to be that guy that, you know,
not going to tell me Hulk Hogan stories and Ultimate Warrior.
No, it was a dream to be a professional wrestler or anything like that. I was, from the age of 6, heavily into my football. I played at high levels, played for the Wolves youth team up until I was about 17. And then I was playing like adults league at a high level up until I was about 25. At 25, I had my little girl, and obviously at this point, I was just like, I can't really be asked with Sunday league football or anything like that, where you got to call up your friends like to see if they can play and if they're available and stuff like that. And I was just like,
don't miss them days, mate. I don't miss them days.
I was just like, I think my time's done. And it was just like a pretty much thing. Like, a friend of mine was already in the wrestling business at the time. I wouldn't say I didn't watch wrestling, but I wasn't like heavily into it. Like I liked like the Attitude Era and stuff like that. I haven't got the best of knowledge when it comes to like who like listing off WWE champions and stuff like that. Like most of the lads that I know that can do that. But you know, I sort of like got into it because I loved, after I seen my first independent show, which was the SWA one, and a friend of mine was on it. I fell in love with it. I fell in love with like the independent scene of wrestling. And I don't think there's, you know, I know there's so much like lights and music and everything based with WWE and production, but I just don't think you can really get that underground independent feeling. And I just fell in love with it. And I think after a show, I looked at the two guys in the main event and I went, I think I could give this a go and see what happens. And I went to my first training session, and it was at basically where we hold the shows now. Mm-hmm. I turned up and literally there was like 15 guys sitting in a circle. I literally thought it was an AA meeting. I was like, oh, okay. This isn't what I thought. And they were like, no, are you here for wrestling? I was like, yeah. And I sat down and we chatted about a few things. And then next thing I know, they were like, okay, here's a crash mat. Let's start the training and stuff like that. My journey developed. I was training with, at the time, it was sort of like became its own thing, due to the fact like there was a number of stuff that was happening during the behind the scenes at SWA at the time. The promoter who was running it then, it was like he was umming and ahhing whether he wanted to stay in wrestling and stuff like that. So the school went like on a separate sort of thing for itself. In 2015, we decided, the guys that were running it at the time decided that they wanted to run a show. So, you know, I think that was December 2015, and you know, we obviously guys that had been training for about a year and a half at this point, were really excited because they're now going to get on a show. It wasn't really heard of at the time, I don't think. You know, like now, like you see a lot of academy shows and stuff like that. At the time, I think we were literally probably one of the first academy shows around.
Wow.
And we wrestled in a small venue at the time in St George's in Telford, and it was like, I think about 40, 50 people turned up, which obviously at the time for like me, it was just like, oh, there's 40, 50 people. It's brilliant.
Like WrestleMania.
Yeah. And I was very fortunate. Like my trainees, my trainers at the time, had the belief in me to main event alongside one of the trainers. So
wow.
I was absolutely buzzing, like, to represent the promotion. And I went on to main event, and I watch it back now, and I'm just like, yeah, man, that was something. That wasn't something great, but that was something. And I've just learned a lot about the scene going forward. As for going into promoting, it wasn't literally, I'd only done 5 shows before I became a promoter, and that was due to the fact that the guy that was running it, he was going into his new business. He was sort of stepping away out of wrestling and stuff like that. And I looked at an opportunity that I thought, if I don't step in, we're going to lose a training school in Telford. And obviously at the time, there wasn't many training schools around. You'd have to travel a good 50 minutes, and you know, 50 minutes sometimes is a lot, especially if like you've got a training school full of like 12 guys that are losing out, and they would have to travel, and they can't commit all the time for 50 minutes a week. So I was like, yeah, do you know what? I'll do it. I sort of learned from the promoter at SWA fairly quickly. I'd gone to shows, I'd gone and met people, I'd talked to promoters all the time. You know, what do you think about promoting? How could you help me? You know, I spent a lot of shows asking promoters questions, not on just to get in with the wrestling, trying to wrestle myself, but more on the idea, if you can give me information on how to promote and how to do it properly, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, I promoted my first show in 2016, and I've been doing it ever since. And yeah, and as you can tell, it wears you out.
Yeah. Sorry, Ed, go on, mate.
Sorry, mate. Look, we've kind of delved into. We've sponsored a whole show once, so we know the back end and the trials of tribulations that because we you know, for the show that we done Buckle Up, we booked some names that wasn't normally regulars. Every kind of indie promotion in the UK has their set talent, the ones that are always there, and then you try and pick up. So we had the likes of Oku and Mills and Scotty Rourke and people like that, and that doesn't come without its problems. Obviously, you know, this person can't lose. This person can be in the match but can't be pinned. How do you go about that with your talent? Did the talent kind of understand it, or does sometimes it take a bit of convincing, especially if it's like a top level name in your company?
So with APW, it's very much, you know, everyone is the thing that I will separate us from any probably other locker room is that every guy on that show is out to make sure that show is the best show possible. No one cares about winning or losing, because ultimately it doesn't really matter. You know what I mean? Unless like we're telling a story and stuff like that. It's about literally delivering the best show for the fans, and making sure that we go in the right way, and make sure that as long as myself, they understand that I respect them, that they respect my decisions enough to really, you know, take the company in a direction that I want to take it. It is tough. You know, I'm not going to deny that we've probably had some upset faces sometimes, but you know, like I said, that's what I love about APW, and because we've grown together, it's more a sense of a fact of we know what we want, we know what we want to achieve. SWA is a kind of different matter, because obviously we're having different talent. We're having talent that are coming from all over the country, all over the world at times. So that sort of we have to look at that in different ways. We have to communicate, obviously, in different ways with the talent in that one. But again, it does stem down to hopefully that they see the respect that I have for them, and they have respect for me, and we deliver again what the best show possible for the fans is, and the stories that we want to tell. I absolutely have loved every minute of promoting. It's hard, it is stressful, it absolutely puts grey hairs on your chest, but it is literally my favorite job. The best thing about it now is that for me is like it's a full-time living for me. So that is the one thing that I'm probably proud of the most, is that I've been able to achieve to become a full-time worker in wrestling, with running shows and wrestling.
Obviously, Luke, you say that obviously APW is celebrating 7 years coming up now. I mean, how hard is it from the start, from when you started to where you get to now? Because like you say, you've turned it into a full-time job, but obviously in the beginning, how hard is it? We speak to wrestlers and promoters all the time, and one of the things that all the wrestlers we speak to, they travel around the country, is finding that balance between the work life and the wrestling life. How did you combat that at the start? So when you were just setting up this promotion, it was really new.
So I was working for a big company, and really good money. And when I delved into professional wrestling, I quit my job. I went straight in. I knew that I had an idea of where I wanted to take it. I knew that it would take sacrifice. I'd have to learn other things. I knew that I'd have to sacrifice money in areas, and that's what I did. I spent many hours learning Adobe, from Premiere Pro, Photoshop. So I do all our graphics, all our posters, or to save costs more than anything. Because don't get me wrong, there are some fantastic people that do posters and that. But obviously, for us, if it can save money, we can put it towards other things and stuff like that. And that's where you've got to find the balance. It's not easy if you're looking to ever get into this full time. You have to sacrifice a lot. I sacrificed a lot of time, a lot of years of having no money. It was probably not until after COVID in 2021 where we got our own unit, where probably the bigger money started coming in for us. But yeah, like starting off, I was at show tickets for like £5 at the time. So full well, like you're not earning a lot of money on £5. No. And as I've just come into it, the guy that just before had just brought a wrestling ring, so I had to make sure that he was paid back and reimbursed for that, that ring. So we felt very fortunate at the time to fall onto that ring, because it was, I think we paid about 850 quid for it, and it was roughly a training ring at the time. But since then, like we've invested, like at the forefront, we had to go, like we've got to invest money here if we want to make money down the line here. And that's the way I've looked at it. They call it the wrestling business. It is a business, like first and foremost, and a lot of people need to understand that. Like you've got to be, for a promoter, you don't make a lot of money, and I don't think a lot of like wrestlers, a lot of fans, and people within the industry don't understand how little money sometimes you make. And you see it all the time, like in the sense of affordability of shows being cancelled because ticket sales aren't happening. I think we're very fortunate that we've created something at APW over the 7 years that it stands out. I mean, we've gone from, like I said, our very first show was 40 people, and we were doing, I think, a show every 3 or 4 months maybe at that time. I think we did, so going into 2016, I think we did 4 shows maybe. And then the year after, I risked it and I just went, look, we're going to do 10. We're not going to do shows in. At the time, we weren't going to do shows in January, and we weren't going to do shows in August. Every month had a show other than them two, and it paid off. We started building. Again, we weren't making much money, but the money that we were making was going back into the company to invest in it in different ways, like belts, and because they're not cheap anymore. Especially if you want something that's a really good standard. And obviously we were investing in the training school as well. It's little things like that really sort of helped us get to where we are now. But like I said, it's ever since like we came back from COVID in 2021, 2021, and we had our unit, and we really had the opportunity then to get our academy guys and go, look, right, we've got more time to train. We've got 3 days a week for adults now. If you want to hire the ring, you can hire the ring. And literally our first show was August of that month, even though we tried plenty of times to get going, but the council were having none of it, and it was a nightmare. Especially like the worst thing is at this time, I've been paying taxes and I've been paying all my stuff, and during COVID they wouldn't give me any help like for the business or stuff like that, and they refused because they were like, we don't really see professional wrestling as a business to give you the money for you to pay it back down the line. And I'm like, but you've seen my taxes and
yes, my livelihood.
And they're like, but they had no interest. So, I went back before I got into wrestling. I worked in for a short period of time. I worked in Game, and the guys at Game were like, during lockdown, they were like, look, if you're looking for a job to get some extra cash, come and we'll give you some work. And I was just, because they're really good to me, to be fair, those guys. I think it's because I bring the sales quite well to them there. So they every Christmas they're always asking, even when I'm doing really well, they still ask me now. So it's
always good to be wanted, mate. It's always good to be wanted. Oh wow.
And so I literally took my last wage I got. I'd done a load of hours, and I was like, right, let's get our own unit. And we got our own unit, and it's been an absolute godsend, and it's really transformed the school, which led to like the show in August, and we sold out like 200 people, packed it out, and we now average anything between 150 to 200 people a show, and that's, like I said, 10 shows a year.
Wow, that's incredible. What do you make of the we've been very fortunate in the last few months, a year that we've been doing this, traveling around the country and London. It's surprised us no end, and since especially when we've got to know a lot of the talent and they've become friends of ours. Has it surprised you? Not surprised you, Luke? Like you say, you've been involved in a long time, but the talent of wrestling pool in the United Kingdom now. You go back, I know you didn't watch it, like you said, you didn't really grow up in it, but when myself and Adam got into wrestling when we were younger, you kind of knew what you saw on TV, which was the British Bulldog and William Regal, and that was pretty much it. Since the modern day has come on, and Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and things like podcasts now, has it even surprised you that the talent that you've unearthed in the country now for professional wrestling?
Yeah, I think the good thing is, like, from being a promoter and a wrestler, is that you get to meet people that you might not have gone to a show because you were booked on it. You're booked on it. So it's like now I meet people that that I might not be too sure of, because sometimes it's not easy because of social media and stuff like that, because there's so much talent coming at you from left, right, and centre, and different schools now are popping up all over the place. So it's hard to keep track of certain talent, and obviously you get messages as a promoter, but when you're running two promotions like myself, my messages quickly feed up, and it's like it's hard for me to keep track. I was very fortunate that I wrestled a promotion on Saturday at OTC, and I met two young lads, a 17-year-old and a 20-year-old in the tag team of Quintessential, and they were phenomenal. Like I was absolutely blown away, and I literally said to them, like, drop me a message and we'll get you down at APW at some point, like with the tag division that we've got. And I think they'd be a great addition. So I find it better that from a wrestler standpoint, when I get booked on shows, I'm able to see talent better. I find, unless you travel up and down the country on a regular basis, and that's hard to do when you're promoting 2 shows, and the training school that's running 4 times a week, including our kids sessions, to really get out there and meet talent a lot. But I do really think that the wrestling industry on a whole has been better. And people just seem to be really nice that you come across most days now.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Luke, what do you make of the news about TNA rebranding as Impact rebranding as TNA now? They're obviously coming over here this week, Andy. Thanks to me, you got your press pass. Thanks, yeah, you're welcome. But do you think that and they're doing gut checks as well, which obviously the British talent will get a chance to showcase themselves. Do you think that makes the independent scene over here more hungrier now because of the options available to them? Because obviously their dream most times out of 10 is to get to America and do the big shows. Is that really, does that make the British wrestling scene more hungrier now because they've got, although Impact has been around, but it's now A, rebranded, and B, it's getting back to where it was?
Yeah, I always love a rebrand of things because it builds up. Like when we eventually took over SWA, we rebranded our company, shall we say, as Spotfest Wrestling, just so we could say, right, this is the brand, these are the promotions that are linked with it, and this is the training school that we have. So I do love a good rebrand, and especially when it's done right. And I think, like with Impact, with how well it's been doing, probably over, say, the past probably 2 years now, I think bringing the name TNA back is a right time for them. Especially there's always talks about CM Punk now going to them and stuff like that. If, that does happen, I think that's a great move for them personally. He's not probably someone I'd want to work with, but, I think it's a great move for them if that's something. And like I said, the TNA rebrand is something that I think a lot of that core fan base will want. And they'll definitely appreciate it more because obviously, everyone remembers the great matches. The best triple threat I've ever watched was Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, and AJ Styles. Yep. And I didn't watch Impact at the time, but someone, like, when I was learning, and I had a match, a triple threat match booked, and someone said to me, look, if you want ideas for triple threat, watch this match. And I watched it and it blew me away. So I was like, I've been very hooked on watching a lot of the stuff for TNA at the moment, and it's great. As for the gut check thing, I think I can't see how it's not good for the wrestling industry. Especially the UK. I've told my guys, my talent and stuff like that, to sort of go down and check it all out and get them on board as much as they can, because it's one of them things that you can't miss out on. I'm not. You see, I like to believe I'm a realistic, so I know where I am. I know that if I went there and they offered me a contract to live in Canada and stuff like that, I'm not taking it. I've got 3 kids. I'm not leaving them. So it's sort of like, I don't want to be that guy that, I don't believe I would get picked. But if I did, I didn't want to be that guy that would waste someone's opportunity, because someone's going to take that. And it's not because I'm not hungry. I have different aspects of what I want for professional wrestling in my life. I certainly have probably more of a business mind now than I have been from wrestling. I love it. I love the industry, and like I said, the gut check thing is just a really big thing for anyone who, even if you're, just at the early stages of your wrestling career, like, go and do it, because you'll learn from these people, and the amount of talent that will be there that are really good, you'll learn from them. And I think that's the positive that you should take from it. I'm always, we have a lot of seminars with our training school, and we've had some of the biggest names ever. Like, we've had Chris Masters, Eric Young, Axel Tishka, they've all done seminars, and I was Scotty Too Hotty as well recently. And I always say to my guys, look, you'll probably pay 25 to 40 quid for some of these seminars. But these guys might teach you one thing that no one else in the world will teach you. And it's like, you can't put a price on that, because these guys have lived that life. They've lived the dream as such, as what most people look for. But, you can't put sometimes you've got to put your money first, like, to really get that opportunity.
Yeah, definitely. Luke, just finishing up, mate. It's been great to have you on the show. What's the short-term and the long-term goals for the future of like an APW or like the Shropshire Wrestling, the SWA? What's the short-term and the long-term thinking now? Because the UK scene is, we've been involved a little bit in the last year, and we're getting our name out there more in the coming months. I know we're coming to see you guys on November the 25th. We're popping up to see a show that you're putting on, but what does the short term and the long term look like for you guys at APW?
So my big thing is to make Shropshire in general one of the hotbeds for professional wrestling. I think we've been doing that with APW. I think, as in the sense of, you can see good local talent really put on some really good shows. SWA, as you can see, we've invested a lot, especially if you look at the card coming up for November 25th. People, we've just had Nick Aldis for Summer Blowout, and he wasn't anywhere else other than with us. So that shows you just how much we are really looking to put ourselves out. And, now we've got Matt coming over from formerly known as Aiden English. We've got Eric Young back. And we've got Subculture, we've got Lycos Jim, we've there Charles Crowley. I don't know whether you've seen his.
We booked him for Buckle.
We booked him. We had him. Great talent, absolute great talent.
Like, he has done a promo for us today.
It was brilliant.
It's beautiful, and it's just like, we know that Progress are doing that match. Even though we had announced Matt first, we knew that Progress were going to do that match because they're Progress. Why wouldn't they? But we knew that was going to happen. So we were like, right, okay, let's make a story about it. Let's acknowledge that Progress are doing it, because I hate this thing, like, where in this wrestling industry where, these matches are going to happen. Like, there's a chance that these matches are going to happen at a couple of places, and people don't acknowledge them happening elsewhere. They think it's like, it's only here, and it's not. The crowd aren't stupid, especially the crowd that I'm looking at are people that are Twitter-based crowd. APW we don't look at Twitter-based crowds for APW. It's more family-orientated, and that's what I want to continue with that. And, and that's what separates the promotions. Because let's face it, they're both in the same place. If we gave them the same thing weeks apart, it would be it just wouldn't work. Yeah. So now, I think there was 2 weeks between APW and SWA the last time they came together, and we'd sold over 400 tickets on both shows. Wow. So, like, it's obviously there's something we're doing that's right, and we're really excited about the future. We've invested heavily now into the training school, and when I say heavily, I mean a lot of money. We've just brought a new ring from America. It's going to be, hopefully, that makes us stand out more, because we've gone for the cable ropes. So it's very looking like, AEW look, I would say, instead of what most people just using normal ropes. We're now sort of taking control of the unit next to us. We're knocking the wall down in there, and we're having brand new gym equipment, promo corner, everything. It's gonna look amazing when it's all done. It's also the fact that we want to stand out, not just only in Shropshire, but mainly in the Midlands as well, because I've said for a long time that Shropshire is probably a dark horse of professional wrestling. There is some shows, that we had Crowley versus Nick Aldis last show, and it was a match you should have just seen.
Yeah, our colleague Dave was there. He was there with that show.
Our co-host Dave, he was at the event. He said he absolutely loved it, mate. So mate, it's just great to sit here and listen to you talk about it. You can clearly tell that the passion you've got, the love of the industry that you've got, and I think wrestling needs people like yourself, Luke. Like you say, we travel around now and we meet promoters and we meet wrestlers, and you can never have enough people like you. Like you say, you're doing we do a little bit with Ignite. They're doing their little bit for the community down in Bournemouth. You're doing it for where you live. You want your young talent to learn, to grow, and to pass on your knowledge, mate. So thanks so much for coming on the show, mate. I know we're going to come and see you on November the 25th. We're coming up, checking out SWA Wrestling, myself and Dave.
You've got to bring Raywold some whiskey.
Yes, Raywold. Yeah, he made us promise when he was on our show that he's big into whiskey. So I know a little thing or two about that where I work.
Deliver that.
Yeah, I may be able to sneak him. I'll give Luke. I promise.
As long as he doesn't have it
after the show.
Wrestles,
Luke, I promise, mate. He's having it after the show, man. We'll all sit down and have a beer and a shot of whiskey together. But Luke, just tell our listeners briefly, mate, where they can find you, your socials, what you guys have got coming up.
Okay, so if you're looking for me as a wrestler, you can find me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram under Luke Basham. For our promotions, APW Pro Wrestling is all on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find SWA on the same. We also have the Spotfest wrestling.co.uk website that gives you all the details for shows coming up, and that's where you can get tickets as well.
Luke, fantastic, mate. Thanks so much for coming on. I know myself and Dave are going to catch you on part of our whistle stop tour of the country. We're going to catch you on November the 25th. We're heading up that day to catch up with you and the guys at SWA. We'll get to an APW show as well. That is definitely going to happen, my friend. But Luke, keep up the good work, mate. Until I see you in November, mate, all the best.
Cheers. Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me on.
No worries. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been another episode of the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. I've been your host, Andy Burrows, with my good friend and tag team partner, Mr. Adam Cousins. Till next time.
Before we go away.
Why are you cutting me off now? What's going on here?
Bald is best. Look at that.
Why have you got that? All right. See what I have to part with, Luke? You know what I mean? This is
Hey, he's got to sell that baldness, isn't he?
Mate, trust me, he's been selling that for I've known him for 20 years. He's been selling it for longer than that. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the Hitting the Turnbuckle podcast. You won't cut me off again. Till next time, everybody, buckle down, stay safe.